The entry point to creating video content, the minimum requirement, the ground floor, is a video camera. I know, shocking. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. For real though, YouTube is inundated with camera recommendation guides. Point and shoots, mirrorless cameras, cinema cameras, cameras that blur the lines between all these categories. I completely understand if you come away from all of these reviews thinking that the one correct way to get into video is to go out and buy a video camera. It sure seems like the logical step 0, right? Well, you already read the title to this video when you clicked on it, so yeah, spoiler, you can use your phone. There you go. That's the video. We're all done here. In all seriousness though, I think a lot of the reason people shy away from using their phones as video cameras is the reputation that phone video has. Blurry, blown out of focus, terrible audio, just generally not nice to watch. What if I told you it didn't have to be that way? What if the ticket to entry really was in your pocket all along? In this episode, I examine the smartphone as a frugal video camera. Welcome to BrokeTube. A little setup first. Stop me if you've heard this one. An experienced YouTuber pulls up a chair at their dedicated tutorial desk after showing off all kinds of awesome cinema camera B-roll and says, "But you don't really need all that to get started. You can just use your phone. A lot of them are surprisingly good at video these days." And then they promptly turn to their B camera and start talking about how entry-level mirrorless cameras are a great compromise between a phone and a cine-cam. Wait, hold on. What happened to the phone? You skipped over it. Are they actually that great of an idea? Well, let me tell you, these days, heck yeah. If you keep a few things in mind. Now, BrokeTube is all about the practical applications of budget gear, so for this video, there are 3 points I want to cover. 1, the limitations of using a phone for video. There are a few that you just cannot ignore. You'll need to keep them in mind, and I'll show you how to work around them, but you need to be aware of them first. Number 2, quality of life gear that makes filming with a phone far more practical. These are inexpensive purchases that will demonstrably make your phone cam experience less frustrating and more useful. And finally 3, audio. This is probably the biggest reason people don't film on their phones. Let's be honest, smartphone microphones suck. So again, a little bit of cheap gear and a little bit of priceless knowledge to make your audio experience much more enjoyable. Alright, let's start with the bad stuff first. Limitations. Most of the limitations people imagine when thinking about a phone as a camera are pretty easily worked around with the right knowledge, software, and gear. However, there are some very real limits to using a device this small as a camera, and those limits are imposed by physics. They can't truly be overcome, you just need to keep them in mind and work within them whenever you're filming with a phone. The first limitation I think most people will think of when imagining filming on a smartphone is sensor size. Today's smartphones are squeezing upwards of 100 megapixels into a sensor that's barely smaller than my pinky nail. The practical takeaway of this is that these cameras need incredibly short focal length lenses to get any kind of usable viewing angles out of the camera. In the case of my iPhone X, that's a 4mm focal length main lens with a crop factor of 7. Physics tells us the shorter the focal length of the lens, the deeper the depth of field will be, the more of the image will be in focus, and getting subject-background separation will be harder. In practical terms, it means you'll need to use techniques other than just depth to separate your subject from your background. Motion, even subtle motion, can convey depth that the sensor size can't. If you're filming with a tripod and you're locked off, but you have control over your set, instead of motion, you can use light to separate your subject from the background. And generally, don't use a background as cluttered as mine. The other effect this small sensor size is going to have on your video is light sensitivity. Squeezing as many pixels as possible into a pinky nail-sized sensor means the sensor's photosites just aren't going to be as sensitive to light as a larger or lower resolution sensors will. This means that low light video is just gonna be worse than video from a larger sensor. These smaller sensors just can't physically grab as many photons from a scene as a larger sensor can. There's some software processing that can try to combine data from photosites to try and smooth out some of the noise that's inherent in pushing these sensors to such high sensitivities. But a lot of the time that processing isn't as effective with video, or just flat out can't be applied. You can't sit and process a photo for a half a second when you're trying to capture 24 or 60 or 120 pictures per second and make a video out of it. The final physical limitation I want to talk about is audio. I'm going to dive into this in depth in the third segment, but I just want to say that like imaging sensors, microphones are generally better at doing their jobs when they're larger. When you have to squeeze microphones into a chassis this small, you're just not going to get the same kind of audio quality you can get out of even an inexpensive external mic capsule. Okay, now that I've dumped on smartphones for the last couple of minutes, I want to go over some ways you can make your filming experience much more positive and useful. Here comes the gear advice and the quality of life improvements. The biggest advantage to using a smartphone for video is that you already have it. Just open the camera app and hit record. Hey presto, Bob's your uncle. But the default settings aren't terrifically high quality. That's why you're here, after all. How can we make this better? My number one purchase recommendation for making video with your phone is an app called Filmic. This video is not sponsored by them. I heard about this app, I downloaded it for myself, and I tried the free version. I liked what I saw, so I paid for the full version with my own money, and I can say, without a doubt, this is the best $15 you'll spend on video gear. If you have a 4K capable smartphone and you want to use it for video, this app will unlock its full potential. Filmic gives you enhanced control over exposure, frame rate, white balance, focus, stabilization, turn it off when you're on a tripod, file format and recording quality, gamma curve, including a pseudo-log profile, and digital and optical zoom, including a power zoom simulation that's both smooth and useful. You can do dolly zooms with this thing. Filmic. $15. Worth every penny. That is the start and end of the app recommendations. Filmic is available for iOS and Android, but I only have iPhones, so I couldn't tell you what features it exposes for which particular Android phones. There is a free version on the Play Store you can get to try it out and see what works with your phone. Okay, so what's next? Well, we've started at the bottom of the smartphone video ladder and we're working our way up. We've gained control over our phone's camera settings with Filmic. Now, let's gain control over the phone itself with a cage. I've never been particularly excited about putting a cage on a camera as a step one because it usually just adds bulk, and the additional mounting points it gives you can usually get other ways. But for a smartphone, adding a good-sized cage makes an enormous difference, even just in basic usability. This particular cage is available on Amazon for $20. It's not some kind of unicorn, it is made of plastic, and it feels a little flimsy at first, but it's transformed by locking your smartphone inside of it. I've been using it for a little over a month now, and it's completely changed how I approach gathering B-roll. I'm far more likely to use my phone now. Let's go over what it gives you for your $20. We'll start on the right side with this removable handle. It attaches to the side of the cage via a 1/4-20 thumb screw, and if you detach it, you can use it as a pistol grip for either with this cage or with any other camera via the standard 1/4-20 stud on the top of it. On the top of the cage, you've got 3 molded plastic cold shoes for mounting microphones or lights, and 2 brass 1/4-20 receivers. The side opposite the handle has a slot for Velcro or zip ties in case you need to mount miscellaneous equipment to the cage, such as portable batteries or card readers or a lanyard. It's not quite wide enough to accept a 1/4 threaded thumb screw, so it really seems like it's only meant for Velcro or something else like that through it. Then on the bottom is another 1/4 brass insert, which I have a quick release plate screwed into, but that allows you to mount it on any tripod. All in all, I think it's worth it. With all these mounting points, it adds a huge amount of physical practicality to the phone, not to mention significant physical stability offered by these chunky vertical grips. It makes shooting handheld far more practical than without it. So there we go. We have a tripod-mountable 4K capable camera with log gamma, microphone jack, touch controls, built-in image stabilization, and ample mounting points for accessories for a total of $35. Before I dive into audio and using that microphone jack I just mentioned, since we're talking practicality and quality of life, I do want to mention gimbals. Yes, gimbals. Everybody loves their gimbals, right? As much as these seem to be silly, impractical toys, a gimbal combined with a monopod gives you the ability to create smooth, seemingly impossible handheld jib shots, including dramatic pedestal moves and crane shots, as well as wide, sweeping trucks and dramatic dolly movements. There are two downsides to typical gimbals large enough to fly a mirrorless camera or a DSLR: cost and weight. If you're doing one of these cool jib shots while trying to hold up a heavy camera with a heavy lens on a heavy gimbal way out at the end of your pole, it's a recipe for a bad time. If you can reduce the total weight of the system by flying a smartphone instead on a tiny smartphone gimbal, you'll be able to do more movements with less fatigue and less shaking. After weight, of course, there's the cost of the gimbal. Even shopping used, gimbals capable of flying a reasonably sized mirrorless camera are between $200 and $300. If you shop new, those prices can climb all the way into the $600 range. But you want a smartphone gimbal? $75. That's not even the used price. I'm not going to include a gimbal in my running total for this video, since if you're just starting out, you don't need a gimbal right this second. I totally understand if you want to run out and get one, and when or if you do, there are lots to choose from, made by several different manufacturers, all for around $100 or less, depending on what features they have. So, with that out of the way, we're now at $35 in total, and now it's time to talk audio. And talk we will. There are two ways you're going to improve the audio coming out of your smartphone. Either by plugging an external mic into the phone and recording the audio internally, or using an external recorder either with its own mic or an external mic, and syncing your audio manually in post. That's it. Like I said in the first segment about physical limitations of phones, the mics in your phone are not going to do a very good job. They just can't, no matter how clever the recording software inside the phone is. They're going to be limited to a certain range of frequencies with a certain sensitivity level and a certain pickup pattern. Since the primary job of a phone is to, well, be a phone, it would make sense that these microphones are tuned for that purpose first. Here's a quick example of what I mean. This is my iPhone X using the built-in microphones to record audio. You can hear that it's trying, but it's quite bad. It's pretty thin sounding and has especially poor clarity. Next, however, I'll switch to an external microphone. Again, this is my iPhone X using the built-in microphones. This is my iPhone X using an external mic to record audio. In this case, I'm using a boomed shotgun microphone, but you can use a lavalier mic instead. Here's the rub. External microphones, really audio gear in general, is one of those areas where it's possible to literally spend as much money as you have and still feel like you could do better. Audio gear is a total rabbit hole. To that end, I want to be clear that I won't be able to give you all the answers in this video. However, before we finish here, I do want to make a couple of recommendations for places to start. I don't want to leave you high and dry. First and foremost, if you want to plug a wired mic into your phone, you're going to need to convert the plug using an adapter. 3.5mm microphone plugs look like this. They have 3 segments, called the tip, the ring, and the sleeve. Your microphone's headphone jack, on the other hand, if it even has a headphone jack, is going to be a 4-segment design. Tip, ring, ring, sleeve, or TRRS. If you plug one of these microphone cables into your smartphone, nothing is going to happen. You need to adapt the cable using a TRS to TRRS adapter. This lets you plug the mic into the adapter and then plug the adapter into your phone. Finally, if your phone doesn't include a headphone jack, you'll need some sort of headphone jack adapter. I'm using iPhones, so I use a generic Lightning adapter to give me a headphone jack. If you're using an Android with a USB-C port, I highly recommend buying the headphone adapter sold by your phone manufacturer, or at least an adapter certified to work with your particular phone. I've read way too many negative reviews of generic cables from folks who've purchased those generic adapters only to discover that it doesn't work with their particular Android phone. I'll add the prices of a Lightning to headphone adapter and a TRS to TRRS adapter to our running total now. It's going up, but we're still under $60. Hey, don't run off and buy everything just yet, because we're at a point where we can make some choices based on what we're planning to do with the phone. What kind of microphone do you want to plug into this rig? The answer to that question depends largely on what you're planning to do in your videos, as well as the feelings you have about the audio qualities inherent to many of the types of microphones out there. Let me start somewhere familiar. A lot of people like lavalier microphones. They tend to be the first place people go when they're upgrading from the internal microphones on their camera or phone. These are really popular because they're really, really small. They're inexpensive, they're quite convenient, and you can get really repeatable, consistent audio quality regardless of how far away from the camera your subject gets. Lav mics are fantastic choices if you have a large set, if you move around a lot on the set, or if you're filming outdoors by yourself, in which case get a lavalier with a little wind muff on it. They have 3 really very real disadvantages, however. First, this super convenient small size means they suffer similarly to your phone's internal mics. You just can't get a large, high-quality capsule in there without the lavalier itself becoming very noticeable. The second disadvantage here is that they're omnidirectional. While the extremely close proximity to your subject will generally mean acceptable separation of your subject from background noise, any stray sounds that are loud enough will absolutely be picked up by that microphone with equal clarity to your subject. Omnidirectional microphones have no rejection patterns. Finally, the last disadvantage I'd like to point out is much more subjective than the first 2 are. The characteristic audio quality of a lav is a chesty sound that can lack some clarity. This comes from where the mic is usually placed on your subject, on the lapel of a shirt, for example. It's going to preferentially pick up chest resonance and the sympathetic vibrations of the neck and jaw, which are all low and sometimes rumbly sounds. Some people really don't mind this on-location reporter feel that a lav mic can give you, and many people actually prefer it, or just live with it because it's the most convenient option for what they do, and that's totally fine. Lavs have a lot of unique advantages over other mics. I have linked to an inexpensive lav mic in the description below. It has the option to use either a 3.5mm TRS cable, or you can buy it in a dedicated Lightning or USB-C plug version. That's all I'm going to say about lavs, mostly because I don't use them a lot, and there are others who can give much better advice than I can on working with them. Know your strengths, and know when to defer to others. Next, I'd like to talk about my favorite microphone for interviews and talking head segments like this one, and that is the shotgun microphone. Electro Voice invented the shotgun microphone in 1961 and won an Academy Award for it in 1963. The shotgun has been a mainstay of movie and television production ever since. Shotgun microphones are known as hypercardioid microphones, owing to their extreme sensitivity characteristics. They're fantastically sensitive to sounds that are on axis, that is, the sound of what they're pointed at, and better than any other simple microphone at rejecting noise coming in off axis from the sides. Their design leads to some compromises, though. The first being their unfortunate sensitivity to low-frequency sounds all around them. This is a characteristic of their design, and most, if not all, shotguns will have low-frequency cut circuitry included within the microphone to help mitigate it. Still, a shotgun mic will need physical vibration isolation to prevent handling noise from bleeding through into the audio. The second compromise is that their extreme forward-facing sensitivity sympathetically manifests in the rear of the microphone with a large number of low-frequency pickup lobes. In practice, this isn't a huge deal because most of the time a shotgun is going to be used overhead from a boom, as you've likely seen on a film set with an audio tech holding a big old boom arm with a shotgun on the end of it. Or in a situation like mine, where I have my shotgun boomed up overhead of me with this inexpensive desktop mic arm. In both of these cases, the rear of the microphones are pointed up at the ceiling, with no real opportunities to pick up low-frequency sounds. Where it can get tricky is if you use a shotgun on a camera's hot shoe, or on this phone rig we're building here, and the rear of the mic is facing you. Your voice can absolutely be picked up by those sympathetic frequency lobes at the rear of the microphone. However, if you remain quiet, your body will block most of the sounds coming in from the rear of the mic, and all the other directions will be rejected by the mic's hypercardioid pickup design. Making a shotgun microphone recommendation for this video was really difficult. I was racking my brain quite a bit while I was writing this script. The example footage from earlier used this Rode Video Mic Go, which I do not recommend. It's too expensive for the quality of audio you get from it, and it's too quiet to use with the weak preamps in a phone. Unlike the lav mic, I don't want to just turn you loose on Amazon or B&H and tell you to pick up any shotgun mic that looks good to you, because not all of them work with phones. Also, some of them are really terrible, like this Rode. My go-to recommendation for a shotgun mic on a camera, for example, is the Takstar 598. All of these talking head segments have been using it. It has terrific features like a selectable low-cut filter and a 10 decibel boost switch. It's only $30. If you need a shotgun mic for a camera, it's a no-brainer, but I can't recommend it for this project because it doesn't work with phones. I've tested it with all three of my smartphones, with and without all of my adapter cables, and none of them recognize that it's plugged in. Now, to be fair, its listing does say nothing about working with phones, so I guess that was to be expected. I was just really surprised to find a microphone that worked so well with my problematic Canon M3 would just refuse to register with my phones. So, in lieu of making a personal recommendation for a mic I've tested myself, I'm gonna go out on a bit of a limb here and recommend an inexpensive shotgun that's been making waves in the filmmaking and YouTube community recently, the Movo VXR10. This mic is a Rode Video Micro clone, but so far every review I've seen of it, it actually beats the Rode on audio quality and off-axis rejection. The even better part is it's $20 cheaper than the Video Micro. And not only does Movo list it as compatible with smartphones, they include the TRRS cable in the box, so you don't have to buy the adapter. I'm pretty comfortable with this recommendation, but I am going to be ordering a VXR10 soon in order to test it myself, because it sounds like a really great option for on-location and vlogging use. Okay, that should be everything. So what are we looking at for a price then? The most expensive option, which includes Filmic, the cage, the Movo, and a lightning adapter, comes out to $85. The cheapest option, in my opinion, includes Filmic and the cage, a TRRS, and the lav mic, and that is $60. If you skip Filmic and just get the cage and a TRRS cable and the lav, it's only $45. So, is this even worth it? Does it even work? Have I even answered the question, can you use a smartphone for YouTube? Well, I think I have, but if you want to be sure, The intro to this video was recorded on my iPhone 6S using external audio from my Takstar, synced in post. I think the appropriate phrase here is, the proof is in the pudding. Thank you for watching this episode of BrokeTube, smartphone as frugal camera choice. I hope you use this knowledge to go out there and make amazing content, and with luck, I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good night.